Welcome everyone, we're picking up with the next in the series here. And I've taken this box out of the unit, and what this is basically a coil. And he's got these were together, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 coils, which are basically 3 wires in each little coil. So I'm not sure the amount of that matters. This is some sort of goofy thing this guy has done. It doesn't make any sense. And to have a giant thing like this serves no purpose unless you're using a giant somehow witness in here, which doesn't make any sense. So this coil, and there are basically 2 wires that go to the end plate. They're connected to the beginning of the coil and the end of the coil. He has the wires connected to. Those then go over here to the actual connection here. And all this is the end plate. This is the end plate. We'll show you on the other side here. That's the input. And he has a wire, which I'm assuming is a ground on the end plate. There's 1 wire that goes on the top of the end plate and the 2 wires that go to here. So I think the ground goes on here somewhere, but I'm not sure because we can't really tell. So that's all that is. This can be replaced by using a plate where you could lay a input in so you can send energy into the unit. And the same thing with the output plate, which is over here, is connected to this. So the energy, or the witness energy, comes in here and it goes out here, which is the actual jar you see there. So it's as simple as that. So looking at this again, this was that wooden piece in here. This is nothing but a manual timer. And it's hooked up electrically to turn it off or to stop the energy, I guess, when this stops. But all that is a timer. There's nothing here. That's just a block of wood. There's nothing here. There's nothing in here in terms of parts. So this is just a timer. Now, what else has he got on here? In general, as I said, I'm just going to throw this out. This is just a coil. He coiled it around a big plastic box, and that's it. So there's nothing. And the gauge of wire is pretty thin, but it's just copper wire there, and he's made this giant thing here, which is not traditionally Hieronymus as far as I understand. I've never seen anything like that in a Hieronymus machine. They're pretty straightforward. Now, this is not an actual broadcast. As I said, this is an allopathic broadcast unit to send energy to you to actually balance yourself. This is not the traditional Hieronymus unit. This is a secondary unit that he used to go. And now, again, he's used these goofball. Instead of making an adapter here, he used 2 9-volt batteries that go into here to power the unit. Put this here so we can see it a little better. So you'd click the neutralizer on, and that would power it. This is where the timer sticks out of. Here's your inputs. Here's your outputs. And as I said, the coil is going, this big unit here is going to the input. So you can pretty much ignore this. It's just a problematic. Of course, that's the problem with this guy. He really doesn't know what he's doing ultimately. He's done his research, and that's why, unfortunately, he's kind of undependable. And, of course, you can never trust him to deliver your units or anything else. You have to be very careful with this guy because he says that you send him money, and 2 months later, he'll send you a machine, which is a game he plays all the time. So he's completely and totally untrustworthy, and you'll have nothing to do with this guy. Now, in terms of his actual builds here, that's what he's doing. It goes to this cup. the wiring to power everything. Well, here's your little on and off things. And what happens is, to a large extent, all this is doing is clicking on lights. And this is so typical with all these units. So if you want to treat and neutralize, it's there. Now, what is that doing internally? This is a scan. And of course, here's your on and off switch. Now, what is happening here? What's special? Well, absolutely nothing. There's nothing really in here. Now, the only components in here are this little coil again. We're talking about just a wooden coil. It's just a wire wrapped with wooden coil here. And I'll give you a good picture of this that you could stop. Now, generally coils, it's the amount of actual times you wind it around that gives it some sort of importance. So I don't know if any of that is important. You can count them. Over here, well, these aren't any kind of programmed electronics. Let me pause for a minute here to get things a little better. Okay, continuing here. So you've got this coil, and we've got how many times it is wrapped around there. And this coil, for some reason, is wood. And he's got a wood brace on here that he can put it on. Now, why he would do that, I don't know. And the only other component here that may mean something is, and I'm not sure what these are. It could be a capacitor. These aren't programmed, though. These aren't actually computer programs. So these are not doing anything per se. Now, let's see if they're even connected and what they're connected to. So with the wires coming off here, they're going to the switch here. So you would turn these on and off. And what switch is that? That looks like it's going to the... It goes to this switch right here. Let's see if we can get some control of this here. Give you some good pictures here, people that are trying to figure out what this is. So basically, he's just going to this switch, and let's see what this switch is here. Okay. Now, at the top here, this switch is the on and off switch. Underneath here is, what is that on the other side? That is the scan and treatment switch, depending on which direction you go. And that seems to be connected to the timer here in different areas. So it doesn't really, again, we're getting into these things that don't make much sense in terms of doing anything. So there is no really components here. Now, Hieronymus was known for using certain crystals and other things to empower his units. And that's what was in his main patent, is he would use a prism. Of course, that's not here. And what is this? In terms of any components that would do anything? Well, basically, you've got a coil, and I'm going to try and figure out what those things are. I can look in the different instructions. And, of course, it's going, of course, let's see. Yeah, it goes through these things here. And then it goes through the coils. The coils are then going out to, here we go. We're going up to that again, which is the output. Of course, he's running the output to an output, which is where your rubbing plate should be. Because I always like to use in and out plates. Here's your in plate. Here's your out plate. Instead of witness and other things, which I'm not sure what all that means to a lot of people. So the coil goes to the out. It also goes back here to this switch. And what is that switch? Neutralizing. For some reason, you would use this, turn that switch on, and that will then cause... Oh, wait a minute. That going over here. This is going over to here. And what is that over there? Yeah, well, that is the neutralizing. If you switch that switch on, this which is going into the coil here, is going over to the neutralizing area. So what he's actually doing here is causing a little electrical circuit. But the electrical circuit really doesn't mean anything in terms of the fact of these, which I'm not sure, they could be resistors or capacitors, is going through a little coil. For what? What are we doing with any of that? Apparently there seems to be this, which is the out and has some sort of substance in it, basically is not connected to the system. This is just going out to here, and what is this going here? Yeah, that's the out again, and I guess this out. So this is going here, and it's running to the out, which I guess is going back to a degree. It's also, which is going back to the degree. This is then running into another circuit here. And what is that underneath here? That's the neutralizer. This is a neutralizer light that comes on, that you switch on. And that's going into a particular resistor here. Another resistor. And that is going back into these switches as you turn them on. It then does that. But, you know, it's going out to here. It's going up to here. And, of course, there are wires coming from here to do that. So it's kind of a complete circuit to a degree. We'd have to look at this and figure it out more. I don't know if I have schematics on this particular unit or not. So you've got a few resistors there. You've got this odd thing here. We're going to have to figure out if anybody knows what these are per se. Let me know. I think there's some sort of capacitor that he's putting in there, but I'm not sure. But these are not computer chips, meaning there's nothing programmed into these. I don't know if I can find some sort of markings on here or not. Yeah, there seems to be some sort of markings on there. And I'll have to go in there and find out what those are and get a code for it. But other than that, he's just made a little coil here that he's wrapped himself out of wood. So you're going through this different thing. There's some resistors here, but it's not really an electronic device. I mean, you know, what does all that mean? You're connecting to some sort of specimen here. I would say that this unit is pretty worthless as a general rule. There's nothing here. You're getting lights to go on. You're moving energy through these wires that's doing, but what are they doing? And all you're doing here is putting it through some sort of amplification. None of this makes any sense per se. I will have to look at this in more detail. And he's wrapped this, of course, and he has wires around the actual electric glass here. I wonder if he's wrapped it around there. Because he likes to make he likes to make coils. So, and it looks like he's wrapped it around here too. So let's show that right now. So he's wrapped a bunch of wire around the glass, making a coil. This is very typical and common, just as this was a coil. And you can see how this has been wrapped around. He's made a kind of a coil here. He's made a coil of sending the energy around this, which is supposed to affect the person. Now, the problem is that glass is an insulator, so I'm not sure, but he's causing some sort of electromagnetic there by having a coil around it. He's caused another coil here, and what appears to be, I'm assuming these are capacitors. I'm going to have to look up, and of course, they hold energy. I don't think they're any kind of a resistor. Most likely there's some sort of capacitor which holds and releases energy. And he's made another coil here. So basically he's got three coils. An input coil, which is this. He's got an internal coil. And of course this is your output dish coil that he's wrapped wire around. But there's really nothing going, going through here. I mean, there's no great electrical thing unless these are something that is special. But basically, he's got all these wires are so you can are for switches and for lights to go on. They're not doing anything. They're not producing any energy. Is anything here producing energy? Well, the only thing we have that produces energy here are these items. And as I said, I'll have to look these up. We do have some resistors here. There's some resistors here, which again filters the electrical flow at a particular resistance through the unit. And these seem to be going from, again, I think these are just to, let me see what that is on the other side. These are both going to lights. So these resistors are just to, so that the lights light up. They have no purpose to this unit at all. And let's look through here. These are all just switches. Here's another resistor over here. And again, this does nothing. These are strictly for the setups of the switches, and the resistors help the switches work in a boring electrical way. Other than that, there's nothing there, people. So, and we need to know all this stuff so we know what we're dealing with and we don't listen to fools. So, so what is this great Hieronymus device, this aniopathic, and is this correct? He claims he does all the stuff based on Hieronymus plans. Now, we just don't know. Could be, could not. I wouldn't particularly think that was the case. So, as he said, he's got this wrapped around it. It seems to go from top to bottom, wrapped around this glass jar. And that's it. As he said, these resistors are strictly for keeping the lights on, as the ones over here are. So the only thing we have in this whole unit that is something different other than electricity going through coils, creating an electromagnetic space there, which doesn't really prove much. People have used coils for years where they run electricity through it. What that causes is a magnetic effect and a certain frequency effect. So all we got is this, and this is a coil again. It's not complicated. What these are, as I said, I'll figure that out, and that's it. So, as usual, there's not much to these particular units when you start assembling them. This looks like a bunch of wires, but these bunch of wires go to a timer, and they go to powering the electricity source as well, turning on and off switches. And let's turn that over again. So here you've got all your switches, and the wires are going here, and there's 3 lights, which don't really do much. They're just giving you a psychological effect here in terms of the fact that, oh, is it treating or is it scanning? Well, that don't make any sense. All the wiring is going through here. You've got basically 9 volts, which is going in to power it. Here's the actual, and you can see some of the coil inside. You've got this glass with a coil on it, which you put a substance in, or is supposed to represent you, but you probably put your picture in here. And of course, there is no specimen well. Well, where's the specimen well? And there's nothing underneath here. There's no wires or anything else. Let's go there and see if there's no coil or anything else. There's nothing under here. This is where the specimen is. So basically, this is a big piece of junk. There's nothing to it. It's mismarked. It's poorly built. I mean, the wiring is okay, and the soldering seems to be good, but this kind of front on here is pretty poor. As I said, it's just plexiglass where he actually put a laminated unit on, put it on here. This stuff, the in and out jacks, hooked up to a giant box over here. It's just a complete mess when you really look at this. And in my background, it doesn't do anything. What we're talking about here, to break this down, what is this? This is a coil unit. You've got a coil here, and he's putting electricity through it, having an electromagnetic effect. And he has a coil apparently and creating energy to go through the specimen. I'm wondering if there's even energy going into that big box or not. So I'm not sure if there's any electricity going around that giant coil box or not. It looks like It may be or maybe not. I don't think so because you're not using any insulated wires. So it looks like wires are feeding in here and then it's going into the system. And there really is nothing to this. As I said, all this wiring here looks like a lot's going on. It's not. This is just wiring for the typical switches. And of course, we have another thing over here. So, I mean, that's an interesting, I don't know if Hieronymus set things up like this or not. It could be a copy of his. But what you're doing is you're getting two coils. You get a coil that feeds energy in and a coil that feeds energy out to a particular specimen. And what they're saying is that because they're giving you probably general frequencies similar to what but I don't know. Tesla coils run really vast frequencies. And you attack it. But what he's doing is putting electromagnetic frequencies through here that then affects a specimen, which would be yours. There's absolutely what specimen plate? Certainly there's nothing there. I don't know if that switch is supposed to do that, but certainly it's very incomplete and very basically the actual contents of this in terms of the fact of the wiring and everything else doesn't make sense. But as I said, what you basically got is this is nothing more over here than a giant coil. This is nothing more than a coil. You can see all these little indents here is electrical copper wire that's been around it. And it looks like it's probably magnetic wire. It's copper wire, but it's magnet wire. And that then goes into the unit, and then it goes, which is supposed to send energy in, which I don't even understand that per se. What are you sending in? And this is the out well where you put your photograph in. So it's a big confused mess. And of course I'll be giving you all and you can see kind of the coil in there now. And there's nothing special to it. I don't think it's wrapped any specific amount of times or anything. Some people like to do that. Well, you got to wrap it 62 times. Well, I don't think that matters. Basically, he's creating a little electromagnetic, when you use copper wire and you run electricity through it, you're creating an electromagnet. So all he's doing is doing that, and of course he's feeding stuff in from the other one to this particular well, and he's got something internally that's supposed to boost all this to achieve some sort of effects. So hopefully that's clear with everybody. I will follow up in different areas with more information when I can find it on this particular unit. But just so people know what things are. People think there's a great mystery out there of how all this stuff is done and that there's something special inside of them. There isn't. Radionic devices are traditionally extremely simple. Most people have moved away from this type of wiring into very simplistic, what is considered wiring that you normally would do for a psychic board, meaning the wires do have a flow to it, but there's no electricity going through these panels. Generally, all radionic units which have multiple dials, there's no electricity going through it. Now, there may electricity going to a dial in terms of a light, not through the dials, I should say. They go to a light, they may go through some other things, but generally, the electricity goes nowhere through the dials. That's a psychic process, and it is amplified by the setup of the dials. It's amplified by that setup, by the actual reality of what's going on there, of the flow of what's is bioenergies, bioconsciousness energy flows through these units, is then, in some cases, amplified, and that's it. That's how it works. This is another reaffirming of it. While this has some electrical components to it, as I said, here we go. We're starting to see a little bit there, but... And we'll find out what those are, and we'll report back on them. Here we go. For all those that want to look it up. 2N5670. What the hell is that? I don't know. And it doesn't look like there's anything I don't know what specs to that, but that's what those are, and I have no idea what they necessarily are, whether they're a resistor or a capacitor, but that's exactly what's in there. That's the only thing in here. And of course, we have those resistors, but these are not for the working of the unit. These are for the actual dials. But let me get that on there so everybody can see it kind of clear if they want to know something on there. Here we go. They go by colors. So basically there's 3 red on here, and that's it. There's 3 red colors for these resistors. Anything else here? There we go. There's a nice clear shot of a resistor. And they're all the same. 3 red. Here's another one. 3 red. I don't know if that's a gold at the top. It's hard to see that. It may be 3 red and a gold. Are they all 3 red and a gold? They all seem to be the same. They all seem to be 3 red. Generally, and there may be a gold or not. That looks like a gold, but the other ones don't. Now let's look over here. Yeah, that's definitely a gold on that one. So it's 3 red and a gold. They're probably all the same because they don't look like they're that different. These are typical. These are just all switches. They're just switches. They don't do anything. There's lights and switches. There's these capacitors, which they've used 3 or 4 of them. And we have, of course, these that I just showed you and the coils in there. So that's what this type, and as I said, this is a very unique radionic machine. You're not going to see anything like this again. I don't see wiring like this hardly at all. You know, some of the most wired machines are the Copeland machines, and there's no electricity going through them. Nothing is happening, and there's a lot of wires going every place. And I believe that was done just to give it effect. It has nothing really of functioning of the unit. So we've got to figure out, well, what does all this mean? Anytime we see lots of wiring in a unit, what is it doing? Because they're not putting out any energies. They're not putting out any Hertzian electromagnetic fields. They're just wiring. There's no electricity going through any dials. Of course, this unit, we have electricity going through it and through the different coils and out the other areas, it appears. But, I mean, that's a very low energy, and what is that doing? So you're causing this coil effect, and there's a lot of better ways of doing it than what is being shown here. This unit here, which we have, this is nothing more than a timer. So it doesn't do anything. There's nothing here. There's no empowerments. There's no special electricity. It's all just going to this timer. And apparently that's, you know, we could do without a timer, really. It's just an extra piece there. But that's all that is a timer. That's a manual timer that you set up there, and when that goes off, it closes off the electrical circuit here, which shuts down the machine here, like any timer would do, basically. So, I mean, that's pretty much it with all that. There's not much else to say here. You've seen everything very close up. You have all the part numbers, and if you find that of interest or of value, or you figure out something more, do contact me and let me know what you think of this if you have additional information. But here, yet again, these aren't very mysterious machines when you take them apart. We basically got some coils going on here and not much else. That's it. You've got coils functioning here. And, you know, they've been using coils for many years. The original SC5 units had 2 big coils actually imitating this unit. They had 2 big coils next to each other, and that's what they were using in the original SC5s. I worked on one of those many years ago. So, I mean, that's pretty much what you have here. This is a fascinating look. You're never going to see this anywhere else. And this is supposed to be a replica of an anapathic Hieronymus machine that were made. I think these were made up to the 50s, possibly even the 60s. Hieronymus lived to his early 90s, so he was producing stuff for a long time. Hope you've enjoyed it. More to come.